So for levels 3 and 4, we have to be able to find the axis of symmetry and find the vertex, and then we have to use them to create our table and graph our equation. So first step, let's find that axis of symmetry. Identify your A value, which in this case is a -1, our B value, which is a 2, and let's plug it into our axis of symmetry formula. X equals negative, here's our B value, over 2 times our A value. The top can't be simplified any further. It's just -2. And the bottom, though, is 2 times -1, which is another -2. So we can reduce that. -2 divided by -1 is +1. So our axis of symmetry is x equals 1. Remember, to find the vertex, we have to take that 1 and replace both x's with it. So we'll have a negative, and replace the x with 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 5. And we'll let our calculator do all of that heavy lifting for us. So we'll have negative, parentheses 1 squared plus 2, parentheses 1 plus 5. Make sure it looks exactly like what you had written. And we get 6. So y is 6. So our vertex is at the point 1, 6. Now that's important information because when we create our table, our vertex, just like in our last standard, is going to be right smack dab in the middle of our table. That's what we want, because what we're trying to create here are those points on either side that are providing us with a little bit of symmetry if possible. So right in the middle of the table, we'll have 1 for x and 6 for y. So how do we come up with the other points? We're going to count down. So 1 counting down would be 0. Counting down again would be -1. Go back to 1 and now count up. Counting up 1 would be 2. Up 1 more would be 3. Now the reason why we want to make sure that our vertex is in the middle is because we want to make sure that we have ensured points on either side of that vertex so that we can get a nice round shape. And now we'll do just like we did in our previous standard, plugging in these values in for x. So I'll write it up here and then we'll put the value right below it. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit for you to make it easier because I'm going to have this write kind of small so that you can see what I'm plugging in. So we have negative, here's our x value, -1 squared plus 2 times -1 plus 5. We'll do it again here. -1 times 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 5. Negative, parentheses 2 squared plus 2 times 2 plus 5. And then finally for the bottom, we'll have negative, in parentheses 3 squared plus 2 times 3 plus 5. So each of the x's have been replaced in our equation with our x from our table. And now you're going to practice typing it into your calculator. I'll show you the first one, and then I'll let you go ahead and type the rest, and I'll write in what we get. So you may need to pause the video to make sure that your numbers match what I'm going to write for my table. So here's the first one, negative, parentheses, -1, close your parentheses, squared plus 2 times -1 again in parentheses, plus 5, and we get 2. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you get the same numbers. And we can see that again, I've got that symmetry, repeated values on either side. That's because I was able to use the vertex in the middle. And without finding the vertex, I wouldn't have known where to start my table. If I just started down and went -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, I would not have had those mirrored points. And I wouldn't have necessarily had points on either side either. So putting that vertex in the middle is crucial. Let's go ahead and plot our points now. So here's our coordinate plane. We've got -1 and 2, 0, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, and 3, 2. And let's not forget our most important, not most important, but one of the most important parts. We want that axis of symmetry going down the middle. And you're going to not forget to label it up at the top. X equals 1. Draw in your parabola shape. Make sure that your parabola extends all the way across your graph, even though your point stops somewhere up above the x-axis. So our shape should look something like this. Let's do the next one. We'll first find our axis of symmetry. That means we need to identify our A value. In this case, it's 2. And we'll identify our B value, which is -8, and plug it into our formula. X equals negative, here's our B value, -8, over 2 times our A value, which just happens to also be 2. So -8 makes that a +8. 2 times 2 gives me 4. So x equals 8 divided by 4, which is 2. To find the vertex, we're going to need to take that 2 and replace both of the x's. So 2 and then parentheses. And plug in our value for x. Squared minus 8 times 2 plus 3. In our calculator, it would look like this. 2 parentheses 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 3. And we get -5. So y is equal to -5. That means our vertex is at 2, -5. So down directly in the middle of your table, you're going to put your vertex. So here's the middle of my table. My vertex, 2, -5. So if I count down, 2, 1, 0, and then count up, 3, 4. Let's go ahead and plot or plug our x's into the equation. So we have 2 times 0 squared minus 8 times 0 plus 3. 2 times 1 squared minus 8 times 1 plus 3. 2 times 3 squared minus 8 times 3 plus 3. I really do recommend going ahead and writing these out like this because we've got several places we're plugging in x and just lots of places that we can have mistakes. Go ahead and pause the video and type them into your calculator to see if they match what I get. So we should have 3 and -3, and then mirrored on the other side, -3 and 3. We'll plot those points. So we have 0, 3, 1, -3, 2, -5, 3, -3, and 4, 3. Axis of symmetry coming straight down the middle, dashed line, and it's at x equals 2, just like we calculated above. We'll connect those dots to make a nice rounded parabola. There we go.